You're listening to a TGM production.
Hello and welcome back to Taskmaster World, if you're watching it on YouTube, and Taskmaster World, the podcast in general. Woo! We're back! It has been a while since the last video on this channel, I know, but we are back and we're in the swinging mood. Woo! And there'll be more to come. Now, due to a technical error, we are in this edition of Taskmaster World, the podcast, we'll be talking about Taskmaster New Zealand Series 6, Episode 2, instead of Episode 1. But Episode 1 will be coming in the future. Just keep an eye on that, and it'll all come clear why in the future. But for now, we shall crack on with Taskmaster World, the podcast, Time for Return. My guest today is best known for appearing on Taskmaster New Zealand Series 6, among many other things, is one and only Jackie Van Beek!
Morena!
And so, we shall start at the beginning, because Julie Andrews, for the last 60 years, has said it's a good place to start, and she's not been wrong so far. She might be at some point, but not so far. How did you get into the world we called acting?
The world we called acting, my golly, that's going back a while. I think it was at high school. I went to high school in Wellington here and just got into drama, doing school productions. And then we had this fantastic drama teacher that took our whole class and basically put us into a professional theatre over the summer. And so we kind of were all thrust into kind of professional theatre making. We all just continued to make very kind of ramshackle, haphazard shows, and yeah, then it kind of evolved from there.
And do you think being thrusted into it helps to give you that passion that you might not have had 4 hours earlier?
Um, I think being thrust into it is good in that I think often as human beings we like to play things quite safely, and I don't think a bunch of 17-year-olds would have had the kind of guts or gumption to go and put on their year 13 play in a professional theatre. But because our drama teacher just threw us into it, suddenly we were just doing it. I'm a big believer in not thinking too much when it comes to acting, or kind of just kind of going, we're doing it. You kind of trick yourself into it. I still try and do that with myself if I have something to write or something to perform. I think it's not happening, it's not happening, it's not happening. Holy heck, it's happening. So I don't have the dread or the fear beforehand, you know.
And before you were on the mega hit Taskmaster New Zealand, were you a fan, or had you seen any of the original British version of Taskmaster?
Not at all. No, I can't say I was a fan. I knew very little about it. When I was invited to, I think I was invited maybe for season 1 here in New Zealand, and I was like, oh no, I don't know what that is. I'm too busy. And then season 6 came around and they called me again, and I was like, well, I still can't quite remember what that is, but I'm going to look it up because I'm more interested now. And so then I watched the pilot of season 1 in the UK, and I loved it. And I watched a couple of the New Zealand ones, and then I have a lot of friends in New Zealand. We're essentially all friends. So I had a lot of friends, and I was like, oh, I'm not sure. And I think it was Tom Sainsbury who was in one of the seasons. He was like, Jackie, you're gonna love it. Like, you get to dress up, you get to put on wigs. I was like, it's not like a panel show, is it? He was like, no. And so that's how I kind of learned about it. And so I signed up, and I really enjoyed it. It was silly, just like Tom said.
Yeah, and it's one of those programs that it's the only program I can think of that's so easy to translate, because it's not basing any type of humor. It's the humor of the contestants. And do you think that that's why it has been a success? Because it doesn't matter where it is; it's all about who's on.
I think so. And I think people just enjoy watching people humiliate themselves and fail. I think we all love that, right? You're like, oh my Lord. I've been watching a few episodes as they're airing here in New Zealand, and you just think, watching myself and the other contestants, it's so excruciating and entertaining to watch them just get it wrong, or not get it wrong, but like to take so long to find an object that's right in front of their face. It's quite painful but fun. Probably more painful for the contestants watching themselves,
Yeah.
I'd say.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it is one of those shows where because there's a gap between filming the tasks and filming the shoot, you know that it's a battle of do you remember what you did? Do you know? And do you think that find it harder for you because you have to remember how to defend yourself if it goes horribly wrong?
Well, I think for me, more so than the other contestants, I would say, to put it positively, I would say I'm very in the moment as a person. I really tend not to think about the past or the future too much, which I think, is good for, like, because I do a bit of acting, I do quite a bit of acting as well, which I think is good for that. But I remember very little from the past. And so, I genuinely was in the studio shoots and pretty much remembered nothing. So everything was like new for me. Like watching those videos, I was like, "What's this one? Oh wow! Oh wow! I wonder if I'll find it." Like and then there were some big revelations, of course, where I was like, "Oh, I never even saw that," which were devastating. But so I think not remembering kind of much is kind of quite freeing. Makes you seem a bit kind of like an ignorant clown, but also quite liberating, I think. I didn't put much energy in trying to remember things, I must say.
And moving away slightly from the world of Taskmaster a bit, but one of the things he worked on that I would deem to be brilliant, and everyone else that has seen it would also deem it to be brilliant. What was it like working on the phenomenal Funny Girls?
Oh, I loved that. Yeah, with Kevin and Co. Um, I really enjoyed that show. That was a long time ago. Who did I play? I played, look, the memory thing. I played, you probably know more about me than me at the moment, but I played a kind of inept producer called Pauline, I think. And it was fun working with, Rose Matafeo and Laura Daniels. And I enjoy playing those characters. I've played quite a few of them now, just these kind of quite people in quite a what should be a high status position who really know nothing about what they're doing, but somehow managing to get through the day and not feel bad about it either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And with having a show like that, and now the success of the people that are on it, and the fact that a lot of people will get their eyes on it now because a lot more people have now know who like people like Rose Mastroianni are because they've
Yeah.
the montage. Do you think that it's a good thing that? Do you think it was fun to do because the aspect of you now know that a few years later it will have another resurgence and more people will find it because of the talent that was on it.
I mean, I always choose to do or not do things, in terms of like how fun do I think it'll be at the time, who's on it, do I think it's an interesting idea? And so I don't really think about, well, I do as a kind of writer, because I do a little bit of writing, directing, producing as well. But as an actor, I don't really think about how many people is this going to reach. I just think, will this be kind of fun, challenging? Is it with good people? But it's always a bonus when something reemerges, isn't it? I mean, yeah, audience so many years later would be an absolute delight. Of course, then people in the supermarket might come up to me and start talking about Pauline. I'd have no idea what they're talking about, which often happens to me. I'm like, sorry, what are we talking? Which one are we? What did you see? What did you see, young man? A bit quite vague.
Yeah.
Um,
And one of the other things you've worked on that when you hear more about the production of it, it gets funnier and funnier because um, uh, I interviewed Paul Williams a few years ago, and
Oh, yeah.
the thing I'm about to mention, he mentioned that when it was being filmed, he was always in that place where it was being filmed, but he would always cut out of it because he was there in the background, so he's doing his own thing, but the camera crew's got him in the background, but they've always cut those bits out. So every time he sees them, he's never in it. So what was it like working on the phenomenal film What Do We Do in the Shadows?
Oh, what we do in the shadows. Now, that was a lot. In fact, which way do I need to move? Look at that.
Ooh.
That's a poster from the original. I mean, if you look closely, it's just a bunch of dudes looking cool, and then one woman, which is me, on literally on her hands and knees scrubbing. But apart from that, no, I think Karen O'Leary is up there somewhere as well. Is she? God, I don't know if she is. I can't, no, I don't. I think I think, oh no, I think I'm the only woman, except there's two young girls that I can't remember that, but they're like kind of young vampire-y, victim-y types. Anyway, I loved it. I absolutely loved it. So I went to school with Taika, and then I met Jermaine when I was at uni. So, they were good friends of mine, and yeah, they kept banging on, about, oh, we're going to make this film, we're going to make this film. Apparently, which I do feel a little bit embarrassed about. Apparently, they wanted to do a proof of concept, like a short film, and apparently I said yes, I'll do it, and then just didn't turn up because we were all young and kind of drunk. In our 20s. But then thankfully, they came back to me when they actually had the finance and said, do you want to do it? Even though you didn't turn up to the actual proof of concept. And I said, yeah. I said, I might be pregnant, I might not be, I don't know how many babies I'll have at that stage. And they were great. So I did have a very young baby when we filmed, but they were great. They set up little campers and I could breastfeed. I think we even dressed the baby up and tried to put fangs in her mouth to try. I think we actually shot a little thing which didn't actually make it, but Taika was like, we should shoot something, like it'd be cool, a little baby vampire, but didn't make the cut.
And I think that what makes it really successful is the fact that with all the vampire films and all the greatest people that you would say have played a vampire, you can say that these people in the original film are the greatest vampires of all time because you can just sense that you're trying to be horror, but at the same time, it's just filmed just generic. It's a mockumentary. Do you think that it helps to showcase the scariest villain of all time in a comedy setting by doing it in the mockumentary? Do you think that enhances it to explain this is more ridiculous than you would think?
Yeah, I mean, I love mockumentary myself. I've worked in that genre quite a lot, especially as a director. And I think it's often, yeah, that's right, putting something really domestic, or mundane into like a genre like that. Like Wellington Paranormal is another one, which was a spin-off of What We Do in the Shadows with those two cops. But yeah, I just found it so funny, like taking that kind of a really kind of mundane domesticity, like vampires arguing over the dishes roster and then putting it into that vampire genre. I think it's so funny. And like you say, like shooting it in that documentary style, obviously saying to the audience, this is real, where it's obviously not.
Yeah.
I just find I'm delighted. I'm constantly delighted by mockumentary. I know that I should have probably moved on and moved with the times, but I still pitch mockumentary ideas to people, I still find them so fun. Yeah.
And the a successful format because I'm tempted to make a few myself, and they've not always gone to plan. But I think they work really well because that as documentaries are becoming more and more popular, and there's more out, and there's different types of documentary. Mockumentary is now more relevant than I think as ever because there's more people. Every time you turn on British TV, there's some sort of travel documentary of some celebrity traveling with some
Yeah.
other celebrity, and I think that mockumentaries work really well. And why do you think that Wellington Paranormal was as such a success as What Do We Do in the Shadows?
Well, I think it was that same thing. Like they take two very deadpan police, very, very Kiwi. Like, I don't know how well people know that kind of Kiwi humor, but I guess with all of Taika's films and Flight of the Conchords, Jermaine and Brett and things, people understand that we're kind of quite deadpan and quite back, quite reserved, a little bit like the British, I'd say, more so than Americans. They're quite reserved, don't say probably as much as we should, back foot rather than front foot. And so I think just taking those two cops, playing them very deadpan Kiwi, like just another night, on the beat, whatever you say. And then they're investigating, werewolves or kind of, bizarre kind of ghosts, cults, but still not really, not very often deviating from their kind of deadpan kind of reactions. I find that so funny. I got to direct on 3 seasons of that, and man, it brought me so much joy as well. Just the stupidity of it. Yeah.
And I think that you're right. It has that, like, you can sense that if you were seeing them in real life, they would be real people. But adding this element of monsters and the fact that there was one episode that really vividly sticks in my head when they time travel, and it's like the accident are in the past, but they've not changed their attitude. They've not gone oh
Yeah.
wow, they're still the mundane as they were previously. And
Yeah, business is normal, like that classic. And Kiwis are shocking at that, to just be like some horrific thing will happen or brilliant thing, and Keys will be like, not a big deal. It's not a big deal, Just underplay, 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 which I do find quite charming, if a little frustrating at times in the real world.
yeah, and I
Yeah.
think that what makes it successful, I mean, from my aspect as a British person, is that you can tell that a lot of Australian and New Zealand comedy is very, very similar to British. So you can sort of sense that it's not too dissimilar to what we would have done, but you can, so it makes it more funnier because we can sort of like adjacent relate to it a little bit, and we can sort of take it as what it is, rather than if you watch, like, I don't know, Tim Allen's Shifting Gears, you wouldn't be able to relate to that as much as you would be able to. And I know it's vampires and whatnot, but What Do We Do in the Shadow? You can sort of sense.
Yeah.
You can, and do you think that's why the show, what Wellington Paranormal and the film and What Do We Do in the Shadow? Do you reckon that's why it's become internationally a success, because it relates to different forms of comedy?
I guess so. Like I totally agree. Like, I mean, I think all of my favorite British comedies have pretty much come out of Britain. I find the comedy so funny. Like and all of the podcasts I listen to are British. Like I just think, so smart, so funny, so dark and cynical, which delights me. So I can definitely see how like Wellington Paranormal and What We Do in the Shadows kind of naturally kind of fitted the British market. With America, it was interesting that the show did so well in America, although they did cast a whole bunch of British people, I noticed in the show, of course. But I mean, I guess it's just one of those ideas, and of course with Taika and Jermaine kind of probably becoming, more and more notable, over the series. People are kind of interested to watch it. But I think it is just such a fun idea in its core, you know, vampires just kind of flatting together. That I think, of course, it didn't surprise me. It took over it took, the world kind of really took to it. Um, yeah, I would like to do some more work in Britain. I think I really like what you guys do over there. It's
And
very funny.
and what really works about the TV series, in my eyes, as this person that loves the idea of connecting things, I loved how the film was canon in the series, and
Mm.
there's slight references to it, and there's nods in other ways, and you watch, and because the American, well, I'm going to call it an American version, but it technically not really. But when you watch it, you can sort of tell that even though it's set in America, you can still sense the same type of humor that you were getting from the original and getting from the fact that most of the actors are British, because there's a few other American programs where, like Game of Thrones, a lot of the actors were British and it was filmed in Britain, well, Scotland and Ireland and all the other areas. But the point is, it still works. Do you think that? Why do you think the TV series took off? Do you think it's because the concept is so beloved, or do you think that because they made sure that it connected to the film, fans of the film could then tell everyone that the series is as brilliant as the film?
Yeah, I don't know the data. I'd be interested to know how many people that watched the series, which I understand was a lot, had watched the original film before they started watching the series. I imagine a lot of people would have found the series and then gone back to watch the original film. I think it was so successful, I mean, in my humble opinion, because, like you say, the concept was so strong, such a fun concept. And also because Jermaine and Taika, like, and good on them, like really, really stuck to that tone. You know, it'd be so easy to kind of blow that concept out into kind of a sitcom-y kind of lol fest, but they kept it quite dry and deadpan. I know they pulled a lot of New Zealanders in for that first season. I got to go and direct a couple of episodes, which was so fun. And like their costume designer, their DPs all came over from New Zealand. And then, as the series kind of really gained momentum, they started hiring more locals. But I think I just thought good on them for really trying to, and with their counterparts, their showrunners and things over there, really trying to stick to that quite dry tone, and not let it blow out. Like so many comedies just blow out, and you think, oh, that's a shame.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that what's interesting is because from a British standpoint, we know some of the actors, because you like Matt Berry was famous for IT
Yeah.
Crowd. He was well known in that, and others were quite well known, not probably as well known as they are now, but were there because a few of them had done other things. But it was
Yeah.
interesting that in the later series, when you include like Steve Coogan, I didn't know. When I watched it, I saw him appear in it. I thought, I don't know how many Americans actually know who Steve Coogan is, because I know he's done films, but I don't think the films were ever as successful in America. And so it's like Steve Coogan as a ghost made me chuckle and made me also think, would someone that lives in New York
Yeah.
know who Steve Coogan is as a ghost and know why this is the most funniest thing you've ever seen? And that's what makes that show interesting, because it's built to showcase all audiences. Do you think that that's what makes a show successful, if it's not just catering for the audience that it's broadcasting originally? And do you think that it makes it successful because it helps that when you sell it internationally, everyone can still understand the humor of it?
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess so. I mean, that's right. It's interesting. We all know who Steve Coogan is in New Zealand, of course, but I don't know what. Yeah, well, I don't know if Americans would know. What about The Trip? That did quite well, didn't it? I wonder if that made it to America. I don't know. They've done a lot of them around the world, I think. But yes, I mean, I imagine that the producers or the network, the commissioners, whoever they are, would do a lot of data research and go, who's watching this show? Oh, a whole lot of British people. I'm just making this up. I've got no idea. I don't have access to that private information. I try to get access to it. No one will give it to me. They go, who's watching the show? Oh, a whole bunch of British people. And then they say to the showrunners, okay, we need to cast three Brits, keep that audience kind of, tuned in. I don't know. Or is it just the creatives going, I love Steve Coogan. Like nobody here knows who he is, but it will be so funny. And they just push for their kind of creative choices. I don't know. I mean, it's a mystery, isn't it? I imagine the data would help so well, though.
And I think that the only element of it that no one would know about until you mentioned it, but Matt Berry was well known by voice to a wide stretch of Americans, because the theme tune for Strictly Come Dancing in the UK, there's Dancing with the Stars everywhere else, is the same theme tune. And there's bits where he goes, oh, and that's Matt Berry. But the issue is,
Oh, right.
in a clip where he told the cast of the series What Do We Do in the Shadows, someone said to him, does he get paid every time he gets used? but he'd obviously done one of those buyout deals where they bought him out to begin with, so he gets no revenue every time they use the theme. He never gets any of that money,
Ah, right.
which is hilarious because that's something that he's messed up there with his contract.
Yeah. You gotta have a good entertainment lawyer, don't you, Tom? This is the one thing we have to remember. Get a good entertainment lawyer.
Yeah, and one of the things you've worked on that came out on Amazon Prime globally last year, and is
Yeah.
now, from what I can gather, but I don't know the logistics, is now airing on one of the channels that's in template. Must be Channel 10 in Australia. What was it
Yeah.
like directing 4 episodes of what I deem to be better than the US version? What was it like directing the Australian version of the mega hit The Office?
It was it was so great. It was challenging to take on such a famous format, which is why I took it on. Well, because I was invited to kind of, I guess, what we call like set it up as a director, set up the show and EP it. So I joined forces with a fantastic Australian writer called Julie Defina, who I now adore.
Yeah.
And so her and I kind of developed that series for Australia. And it was challenging because I love the original Office. I love the British Office. I really enjoyed the US office as well. I was told when I took the job because it was challenging because I love taking projects where I think this could go either way. This could be fantastic, or this could be a complete disaster. Like only a fool would take on something so famous. And so I always try to say no to a job. That's kind of my first kind of thing. I think, I know I don't want to do it, don't need to do it. I've got other things. But then the Australian producers said we want to have a female in the lead, and it was the first because I think it was the 13th version, the Australian one, and it was the first version that put a female in the lead. So then I was like, God damn it, I'm going to have to do it because I love that challenge. Again, could be a complete disaster. People love, Steve Carell and Ricky Gervais and will they cope with it? So it was really challenging. And I was told the first conversation I had, I remember with BBC and Amazon, they looked me in the eye down the Zoom Lenzy camera thing. They looked me down the eye and said, you are not allowed to make the British Office. You are not allowed to make a dark, edgy, because they know that's what I want to do. Of course, that's what I want to do. You cannot make a dark, edgy, toxic comedy. It's like we want to go much more rosy. It's going to be lots of lols. It's going to be lots of, and I was like, okay, I'm going to have to just like sadly put that kind of out of my mind. Because I do like how, I mean, some of it you go back and watch the original show and it's like, wow, like some of it is like so edgy and so, yeah, so toxic, which it's so cringy, which I love. Um, well, the challenge was to kind of make a really warm, cozy, laugh it up show whilst actually trying to retain something of the office format, which is kind of edgy and challenging and anarchic. So that was the challenging balance. But I love a challenge and I loved the cast that I assembled. I loved working on it. It was the my husband Jesse and Julie and I, we wrote the series between us, which was so much fun. But it was just having those very tight parameters, which I'm not used to as much. I'm used to being able to kind of play a little bit more, but I see everything as a challenge. And I was really pleased. I was really proud of the show we made. And you're right, like it came out around the world, and that was really exciting. I remember it was like, oh, I think I put it on my Instagram. I forget things. Like I said, I'll write something and I'll forget it straight away. But it really kind of, and I'd never had a show that so many people were watching around the world all at once. And then, and now, yeah, I think you're right. I think Australia is now, I think it's no,
Well, it's just
Paramount.
Paramount.
Someone's put it on Channel 10.
Yeah,
Maybe Paramount? Don't know.
don't know how.
So again, there might be yes, some more audience. that don't subscribe to Amazon Prime that now get to see it in Australia. But I really enjoyed it. It's a very long answer to your very short question. It was challenging, it was fun. I didn't know which way it was going to go. I thought it was going to take a year. It took 2 years. So I was also glad when I got to kind of go on and do other things. I was like, "Ooh, that took a while, but it was worth it."
Yeah, and because I've got this weird fascination with once you watch something and find out there's international versions, I'm gonna know about everything to do with it. This is why Taskmaster World exists. But the passion about it is that when you watch the British office, then you watch the American office, right, and then you watch every other version, you can tell which version they took inspiration from the
Yeah.
layout of the office. So if you watch, I'm gonna get it wrong. If you watch the Arabian version, that I've done that. I had no idea what was happening, but from what I've seen, it was interesting. You can tell that that's based off the American version because of the layout of the office, and that's what really fascinates me. Because when you watch the German version, that's based off the British version, and that got its own spin-off film. But that's what's really fascinating about a format that isn't a reality show or isn't a entertainment format is that you can tell where the inspirations come from, and you can sort of then enjoy it because you know that the humor's going to be more like that version of that version. Do you think that that's what makes adapting a format for a scripted show a lot harder because you sort of have to work out how you're going to make sure that the fans of the franchise are still going to enjoy this version, but without taking away too much of what retains of whichever version you want to take the most inspiration from.
Yeah, I think we had so many, back and forth conversations about that balance, because obviously people want newness in the format. And I said up front, and I think we all understood it. It's like I can't create something that will compete with the US office or the UK office. Like the UK office is a cult hit. Like, it's like it's so adored. The US office, I think, was one of the biggest shows, like like one of the most famous, most popular shows of all time. Um, but I can't create something completely different because then it's not the format and people will be upset. We can't create something that is too similar because it will feel derivative. And so it was really, well, like you say, it was really that was a real challenge to find that balance. So what Julie and I did is we stuck with the kind of four main roles. We flipped the genders of the boss and his minion. And then we kept the love interests. So we took those four and kind of reimagined those four. And then for the rest of the ensemble, we created completely different characters. And of course, we created completely different storylines that felt more relevant to Australia. I mean, I did find it funny that they asked a New Zealander to set up the Australian office. I did point that out in my initial meeting. I was like, I'm sitting here in New Zealand. But again, like, New Zealanders are funny. Like we're funny. And so I did pull half the cast
Yeah,
of the Australian office of Kiwis because they're funny.
yeah, the
But
brilliant.
I loved working with, like finding like Felicity Ward to play the lead. She was such a gem. I loved working with her. And the whole cast were fantastic. And we had a ball. Yeah.
And do you think? And I don't know. You even if you know the answer, I don't think you're allowed to say because the world's shackled by NDAs. Too many people say there's too many of them. And I don't know enough about the how many of them exist in the world. So, do you think that the show might come back for a second series, or are you not allowed to say?
I don't think I'm allowed to say. And I don't know if I know.
All right.
Um, as I said, I like to stay in this kind of who knows? Who knows until it happens with anything in my life. I
Yeah.
mean, I do have to like pick up the kids from school at a certain time and things like, although I did miss a few of those when the kids were young. It's like, well, I don't know, maybe it's time. Maybe it's time for the kids pick up. I don't know. No, I'm not that bad. I'm actually quite organized. I got on this call, for example. We only postponed once and then we managed to get this call happening. Amazing. Um, yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if I could say.
Yeah, and what's interesting about that answer is that I had interviewed. So there's a program on Amazon Prime. I don't know if it's international, but it's called 007 Road to a Million. So it's the actor Brian Cox, and he's like the boss, he's the host of the show, but he plays a character, and all the contestants do James Bond style things, and so they have to get to £1 million or
Oh, amazing.
whatever the amount is. So they have to each different challenge is based off a different Bond film. So they'll all be doing the different things. And he was on an Irish program, and he was being interviewed for something else he was doing, Succession probably. And they had told him that the show had been renewed for a second series. He had said, "Oh, that's brilliant! I didn't even know that." And then I interviewed the person that helped create the show and make some of the games for it, and he had said it had not been commissioned for a second series yet.
Oh,
He'd been told about this off
yeah.
an Irish program to him, who he sat at home in Scotland just on his chair going, "Wow, this is brilliant." But it has been given a second series, and then the second series has come out. But the point is that it's interesting that he didn't know it was going to be renewed. Someone else assumed it was because he had some rumor somewhere and assumed it was true, and it come back. And then I'd come back to the original person. He went, "No, it hasn't been commissioned yet." And that's why NDAs are so important. Is that more people should less link them to the press as rumors, so that the stage people doesn't find out. And do you think that's the hardest thing to do, to try and make sure that none of the elements of what you're creating get linked to the press?
I think I don't know. I think everyone has a pretty good understanding now, especially that social media has been around a few decades now, that you don't take a photo on set and just upload it. Like I think I mean, of course, we all have that talk at the beginning. The producers will all give us the chat. Remember, everything's confidential. You can't be uploading all your pics, your selfies and stuff. I think everyone, I imagine on those bigger scale productions, when you have thousands of crew and things, it might get a little bit harder. And so you need to kind of, maybe producers need to come down, or those studios come down with so instill like the fear of death into people should they mention what happens in episode 7 of blah blah. But yeah, I think it's I mean I myself, I never believe anything like that I'm involved in until I'm actually on set. Like if someone says, "Okay, you've got finance for this, we've got finance for this, this is happening on this date." I'm always like, "Is it?" I mean, things fall over, things are that, at some point I have to believe it's happening, so I actually get on the plane and get to set. But I am someone who's like, is it really happening? Like, sure, especially if it's something I really want. I'm like, really? It always feels better when you sign a contract and then people send you flights and then you're suddenly on the plane going, I think it could happen. And then you're on set and like, God, it is happening. But then I think, well, but something will probably happen and the show won't go to air. Like there'll be a catastrophe and then the show goes to air and you're like, oh my God, that whole thing actually happened. What? What I should probably stop living in such a kind of miserable, kind of paranoid, cynical, and actually enjoy it as it's happening. But I'll never throw a party, or I'm never the person to like crack a bottle of champagne of like, oh my God, we got the finance, because I think it's going to be a nightmare. It doesn't mean it's greenlit. Like it does, guys, just like we all need to calm right down, which is very miserable of me. But
And you mentioned there about large sets, and one of my favourite stories of a large set is that in I can't remember which year, but they were filming Doctor Who, right? And at this point in the world, it was the state where no one's allowed to say anything, and they're very good at keeping it secret. But there's millions of fans filming, taking photos, and trying to go away. And this crew member walks past with this box. Now, this box contained props for a top secret person. There was going to be a big reveal in the series. Now,
right.
the word of the name of the person, the character, was written on the box. Now, as he walks across, he's forgot to cover the box up. So someone's took a photo and spoiled it. And so it says on it, like, I think it says like the master, who was like the grand reveal in one of the episodes. Like no one knew it was going to be him. It was the whole point was the whole episode. You just think it's a generic character, and then the end it reveals that is the evil villain, and it's like the greatest reveal you've ever seen. but there was a bloke carrying the props with the name in like bold letters and some fans that took photos of it.
No.
And so it just proves the point is that on large cruise things can go wrong.
Yeah.
Jimmy was fired afterwards. I don't know what happened to him afterwards, but he really
Oh,
was walking around with it. And then people took the mickey out of him, and there were sketches across the world of Doctor Who where people just recreating the scenes where they're just walking with a box.
oh.
Set
You
it on
don't, how bad would you feel if you were the person that blew that reveal?
just be
I mean,
ridiculous.
I think you'd feel worse. You're going to feel a lot worse, I think, being the person that was carrying that box than the fan that obviously uploaded. I mean, you're going to feel great if you're the fan that uploaded that. Maybe a little bit of remorse afterwards of like, oh, I ruined it for so many people. But God, and you can understand why producers would be so mad, like you're not allowed to kill that person, but certainly you can fire them in a very, very malicious way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, on that note, let's move on to talk about
Yeah.
Taskmaster New Zealand, Series
Yeah.
6, Episode 2. The prize task for the episode, the amazing opener, the prize task was the thing that is way heavier than it looks. Now, when you got given that as the initial brief, what was your initial thoughts before, without saying what you actually gave, because we'll come to that in a minute? What was your initial thought on that prize task?
My initial thought was feathers, like do something with feathers, you know. That was my initial thought. Like, if I do something with feathers, and if I'm quite, because I'm not a very craft, I'm not great with craft. But I thought if I find someone who's good, great with craft, i.e., one of my children, because they're the only people that will agree to work for me for free, and then I do something with feathers, that would be brilliant. I didn't do that because I am too lazy and I couldn't kind of work it out. That was my initial thought.
And so then you ended up doing a cake that was filled with rocks. That I do think that the before and after, it's like the cake looked slightly nice before, but then when you
Yeah.
look the after, it looks a little bit worse. I mean, what type of cake was it?
It was one of those, you go down to your Woolworths, your local supermarket, and it's like the easiest because I'm not really a baker. I'm not really crafty or a baker. I can do it, but I just got one of those quick mix things.
Oh,
And then I wanted white icing, but I stuffed it up. And then so I called, I was a bit stressed because I always do things at the last minute as well. Like I literally had to give it to the production, like in like 13 minutes, it's still in the oven. I'm trying to, like, literally, there's a production person sitting in my lounge going, we really need that. We really need that cake. I'm like, okay. So I get my kids to do it. They put in too much of the bloody coloring because I wanted it because I thought white icing looks light, kind of angelic. They put in coloring, so it was all like dark and blue and black, and I was just like, ah. Um, just gave it to them. It spilled all over the production runner's car. Like the icing was still warm. I mean, it was a disaster. But I thought a great idea. You know what I should put on is because I have these, because I have my props. Um, do you think I should put on my hair?
I think you should.
I think it was this one for season 2.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do it properly.
Wow.
I think
And
it was that. I mean, I like this.
and and the Bree Thomas Hill brought in something that now only a few times does this ever happen. To in general where I'm a bit confused, not too sure. Now I probably was a little bit more confused because I wrote it down and I probably wrote it down
Yeah.
horrifically wrong due to the fact that I wrote it how I thought it would sound. So you can probably shed light onto it. But she brought in a toy sloth filled with two goon snacks.
Correct.
What I might be, I'm now reading it out. I might be slightly stupid to ask this question, but what is a goon sack?
Yeah, I don't think you're stupid to ask that question because I think it is quite particular to Australia, maybe New Zealand as well. A goon sack is like a cheap bladder of wine. You know where you can
Oh,
get the cask wine, like the cheapest wine. So you take it out of the box and you got yourself a goon sack. And in New Zealand, maybe in Australia as well, teenagers will put them on a washing line, like peg it onto a washing line. They stand around, I've heard, and they just whirl the washing line around. And whoever the goon sack is above just has to scull, and then they just whirl it again. And the next person sculls and they whirl it again. I mean, horrific.
well, I mean, I now know what I now know, I can visualize what it is, but I wouldn't, because I don't, I'm
What
not
are you thinking of the wig, Tom? What are you thinking of the wig?
very good. It's a very good wig.
I think I
And,
should do that.
but I didn't really, I don't really know what the British equivalent is, because I'm not in the world of wines or alcohol, so I don't really, I know what a mouthwash looks like, but I couldn't tell you the difference wine. So it was the odd thing where it's the first time ever where I've not been able to gather
Yeah.
what a British
It's
equivalent.
just like cheap wine. You'll have it. You go down to what do you have over there? Your Tesco's, is
Yeah,
it?
you could probably get
Yeah.
a cheap one from a Tesco's.
Yeah, you get the
Yeah,
cheapest wine from Tesco's. It will come in a bladder.
yeah.
It'll come in a goon sack. Yeah.
Well, other supermarkets are available to get you cheap wine. Let's say Lidl. You could probably get even cheaper than Tesco, probably. But when you mentioned there about it spinning around, that's sort of the idea reminds me of the worst piece of technology I've ever seen in my life, which is there's this camera that's 360, right? And
Oh, yes.
it's really precious. You don't want to be flinging it about. So the company that makes this said camera have created this adapter that you attach to it, so you can stand still and just swing it around like you're lassoing it.
Oof.
And my issue is if you hit someone in the head, you will smash it because it's like quite delicate because it's two cameras on either side of it. That would hurt if you hit someone, that's what it reminds me of. So I could just sense a lot of teenagers trying to not get hit by
By
something.
the goon sack.
Yeah, and but it like
Yeah.
in how I imagine it's like a massive disc, and it's like a dog lead retractable thing, and you spin it, and it would be the worst shot you've ever seen, and it would make you feel sick watching it.
It
But
would make, I mean, even you describing that makes me feel so giddy. You know, like as you get older, maybe it's just maybe it's for women. I don't know if men experience it. Like I used to, when I was a teenager, I used to go to, the playground at night and smoke my durries and whatnot. And then you go round and round on the kids' playgrounds and maybe graffiti it a little. Now, if I tried to do that, well, I'm not going to be graffitiing young people's, playgrounds, but I just vomit. I'd vomit within the first rotation, I think. I just can't handle, even going on a swing, I have to kind of like take a deep breath. It's awful.
worst thing to bring in because then she spoilt the ending for all the 4-year-olds that had yet to watch that and Watership Down, which are two of the best films to watch with a child because it looks really innocent, but by the end of it, the child's traumatized for the rest of their life.
Ship Down was harrowing, I remember. But also, Marley and Me is a very old, I mean, it's a very old film, I think, but
It is, and then Jack Anstill brought in a Minecraft book filled with inside of it the boy with striped pajamas, which two one thing. I mean everyone's into Minecraft, so I mean it's not really anything. And then boy in striped pajamas, unless you know what it's about, you don't really get it. So I don't think that worked per se,
um,
but I think it was a good attempt.
it was in a similar vein to Alice's, a great idea. Jack, I will say his last name is Ansett. I'm obsessed with him. So funny. Jack Ansett. We share the same birthday. I love him.
And then Paxasani brought in what I deem to be, and it's you hear about this a lot. I'm obviously not in that world, but you hear about it a lot around the world, and it's the punchline of many of those cheap American sitcoms. I can name many of them, but all. And it was a medical book, and I think that it'll resonate with a lot of people that as a concern because a lot of people in that community or other similar community of that sort of region of the world will understand that as a sort of torment in their life where they're expected to be the doctor, the nurse, the plumber,
Yes.
uh, and the many other people. And I think that it was an interesting idea, but it just wasn't executed well because it didn't look as posh if it was a lot more fancier, it would have worked. Now, first task, which was actually a side task, was to out-alpha the rest of your team and assert yourself as a dominant member. Most alpha wins. Don't let the rest of the team know or you'll receive 0 points. You'll have until the end of your next task. Your time starts now. Now, when Jack walked into the room, did you have literally no idea that anything was up, or did you think that something might have happened?
No idea. Absolutely no idea. I didn't really understand even what a team task was. So that's why I was so surprised to see Pax. I was like, what's happening? And I didn't know Jack either. So I did not know that. I mean, clearly he seemed to be acting in a way that didn't really suit his physique. But I didn't know, maybe I thought maybe that's who he is. So I had no idea what he was doing. Yeah.
And so the task that he walked into to attempt this, and the other people that were doing this were also Alice and Bree, they were all doing it, and so it made it extra more interesting. So the teams were divided into the three, which was you, Jack, and Pax, and then Alice and Bree were a team of two, which a lot of people, and if you watch like some versions that have guests in them, the teams are sort of evened up a lot better. And so the task was draw a portrait that depicts the Taskmaster playing ping pong. Best portrait wins. You must have at least one ball bouncing at all times. If no balls are bouncing, the task is over. You may only draw one line at a time and must take turns drawing. You have 12 minutes maximum. Your time starts now. Whew, it was a long time. When you read that task, what was going through your head initially?
Didn't understand it at all. When I read any task, it was like my brain can't compute that amount of detail. Like like I have to be in a quiet room reading it myself. So I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Yeah, I was just kind of overwhelmed. But I think we did very well in that task. I think by excluding Jack, like by not letting Jack touch the balls, helped a lot. He was a liability.
Yeah, and I do think having that practice to determine that Jack wasn't the one to be doing this worked
Yeah.
made it more funny because then he was on the harder task of trying to keep his side tasks going, what am I gonna do now? And do you think you when watching it back in the show, do you think you could tell that he was panicking that he wasn't gonna make his side task successful?
Yeah, I mean, it seemed very obvious when we were watching it back in the studio that he had a whole nother agenda, which I did not pick up on at all. But I guess you're faced with the task, so you're thinking, we've got to complete the task. You're not thinking, what's the secret? What's the trick? Well, I wasn't. Yeah, I was just like, keep bouncing that ball.
And do you think that it was hard to try and create a realistic drawing of what Jeremy Wells looked like because he's got a complicated non-stick figure-like face? Do you think that having that restriction, do you think that made it harder to try and make sure it looked a little bit like Jeremy Wells?
I find any drawing hard. Like I said, I'm not a craft person, so I was like, the whole task was like most tasks, nearly impossible. But I thought again, I think we did very well.
Yeah, and I think that it worked really well because it was a lot better than the team of two because of only three people getting the side task. It meant that they had the hard job of actually trying to out alpha each other because none of them know that they're doing it, which I always find when they do that, it makes the episode far more interesting because you're like, they don't know what's going on and it's
Yeah.
like a battle. Do you think that when you watch it, do you think that made it more sense that it was easier when you did it because it was easier for your team because only one person had that side task? Do you think that you were more confident you were going to win this one because there was less battle between the whole team?
I had no confidence that we were going to win. I had no confidence that we were going to win anything in this, but it kind of I think it allowed us to move through it more quickly rather than like we just kind of banned Jack from doing anything and then got on with it rather than there being too much back and forth. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Um,
and so Brie and Alice didn't do incredibly well. They obviously they got no points for the side task because they discussed it afterwards, which is always
Fair
brilliant.
enough.
It's brilliant when they edit it so that it looks like everything's happened immediately, and then they've sneakily got other footage going, ha ha ha! Everyone going, oh, it's brilliant! Yes, got it in one. Oh no, you did it 445 million times, and now you've lost. And I think that added to the bonus was it looks like nothing went wrong, but then clearly at the last minute, oh, shock horror, it went wrong. And do you think do you think that gave you some confidence to the point you found out that they got no points for their side tags? Do you think that gave you confidence that you were at least going to get more than 1 point?
Um, I'm going to say yes, but I also will say that I had, and this is terrible, okay? I'm going to say something terrible, Tom. But I didn't really care whether we won or lost. I didn't really care whether I won. I didn't really care about the points.
Yeah.
I just quite enjoyed watching the idiot clowns, kind of, including myself, try to complete the task. So when you say, did it give me more confidence? I mean, I don't think I was thinking about it. I was probably thinking about something completely different. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, watching those guys fail miserably, of course, like naturally gave me confidence that we would prevail. Yeah.
Yeah, and the third task that is deemed to be the most annoying task in Taskmaster New Zealand history, because Josh Widdicombe had to count out beans individually by himself. No one else was doing it, so that's the most annoying task in Taskmaster history because no one else was doing it. But the third task was find your cake and eat it too. Fastest to eat some of the cake wins. The cake is in the room. Your time starts now. Now, when you initially started to look everywhere and try to get Paul to eat it, what was your method to work out what was actually cake and what was the icing that wasn't really cake?
Yeah, well, you see, the way they edited it together made it look like I moved into that stage quite quickly. I didn't.
Yeah,
Like, first of all, the first thing that happened to me, like I said, with every task was just kind of frozen in panic
yeah.
of like, I don't understand the task. What are you talking about? What do you mean? What do I have to find? Then the next stage was also panic because if someone says there's something in this room you can't, like, and you can find, you need to find it, it's in plain sight. I suddenly think, I'm never going to find it. And like everyone else will find it so fast, and I just won't be able to see it. I think I said something ridiculous about my eyes not being able to find things. Then what I had to do, and I did this with every task, is I had to calm down. And I had to just like slow down my brain, take a deep breath, and then kind of really kind of think about that task. So it was actually quite a while with a few different stages of panic and calming myself before I found one of those objects with the icing on, which thoroughly confused me. And
Yeah.
so then I watched it. I watched the episode, and then quite aggressively, I kind of lurched towards Paul and thrust it in his face. I think it was a fear of humiliation, of like, I don't know what this is. Like, it doesn't feel like cake, but it looks like cake. And I kind of just like aggressively thrust it at him, and then realized like it's not cake. And then I tried to start thinking quite laterally. I don't know, like, what have these guys done? They're tricksters. Paul's a pain. He's smart. He's a trickster. What have they done? Yeah, which kind of then got me towards an outcome, I guess.
And I think that the best version of attempting this was the fact that after a long stretch of looking everywhere, Alice ended up, and I feel sorry for the crew afterwards, mainly for the cleanup crew rather than the camera crew that had to quickly go and film somewhere else, was the fact that the room was tipped upside down and didn't resemble the room that it was a minute earlier. And because you've been in the house, do you think that it was harder for the crew than to clean up from that task than you would think the other tasks?
I mean, she was a disaster. Like she was an absolute disaster, and it was so painful to watch that back. I mean, she was literally crying at the end of that task, and also in the studio when she watched it back. Like, I saw tears. Yeah, she totally tipped that room upside down. But one thing I did notice later on in the series
Yeah,
is that thorough examination of the room with her. I think, was she the one police taping things like that? I mean, that actually, I believe, helped her with another task later on because she so knew that room more than anybody. And
Yeah.
so she, without giving away too much, I think she gained a lot of points later in the series from having done that work.
Yeah, and that's what makes it work well in the rest of the outcome because you then know that's fine. And what's really good about it is that if you watch like the American and British version of The Traitors, they're filming it back to back, so they've got no time for mess. So I'm really glad the Australian version wasn't filmed like the day after, like the hour after, because that room would not be ready at all for another crew to come in. That would be horrendous. And
I must say, I love the mess
yeah,
of Taskmaster. I love, like, because what I loved most about being on Taskmaster is it felt like I was kind of like a 9-year-old child again. I was like, able to like put on costumes and throw them on the ground, create a lot of mess, which is such a glorious. I also love Traitors, but you're right, it's very clean.
yeah.
I guess it's not about creating mess, that show. It's about, yeah,
Devious.
yeah,
And it's also about being a very good host, which is what Taskmaster does quite well. And
yes,
Pakistani did obviously the obvious thing and thought of colours and found it quite quickly. Now the thing I would have noticed that quite early on, because I do a lot of filming and whatnot. I would know that you need
yeah,
you technically for a crew that size, you would need someone manning that camera. Unless it was a
yeah.
GoPro, which you're allowed to have unmanned, you would obviously know very quickly that there's something fishy going on. And I quite liked how that was the red herring because the tripod wasn't cake. It was just a cake. It was just a cake.
But that's right, it was cake. And this loops right back to our mockumentary discussion because I wonder if I was at an advantage because I've worked so much in mockumentary as a director and an actor that I'm so used to looking directly at cameras. But I wonder if the others, well, I don't know. I wonder if the others naturally were avoiding looking at the camera because as an actor or something, you're often told not to look at the camera. I wonder if my mockumentary experience, this is just my own like theory that I'm coming up with right now, but I think it's quite a good one
Yeah.
that helps me looking directly at those cameras.
And so then the next task was another team task that quickly relates to the beginning, which and it was slightly altered between the teams due to the unevenness. So for the team of two, the task was to recreate the moment. The other team met for the first team task. Most accurate reenactment wins. Paul
Mm.
must play the third member, a team member. You have 20
Yeah.
minutes. Time starts now. And for the team of three, it was recreate the moment the other team met for the first team task. Most accurate reenactment wins. One of your team members must play Paul. You have 20 minutes. Your time starts now. And my initial thoughts when we cut to the when they showed the official bit was Jack did such a brilliant job of playing Paul.
Oh yeah.
It was it was like one of those things where you have an alternate universe, and all I want now is just every series. I want just one task where Paul isn't there and it's just Jack because he did such a good job. Even though he
I'm
had
gonna say it. I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna say it. Jack Ansett is a genius.
he is,
I think he's so brilliant. I loved sitting next to him for that entire studio shoot. God.
yeah. And when you came to do this attempt, because of did you know who the other team were? Were you already aware of who the other team was going to be?
Yeah, because it's all meant to be very secret and everything. But as soon as I walked into the house, the house for the first time, there were named lockers on my left. I was like, "Oh, all the name, I know all these. And of course, in New Zealand, we know, of course, who everybody is.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, that's cool. Oh, Brie, Alice, Pat. I mean, I knew them all. I was like, oh, cool. And everyone would be like, oh, you can't tell, you can't say anything. I was like, okay, whatever. But
And
yeah, I knew who their team was.
and because you knew them, do you think that that made it easy for you to try and like investigate how they were going to greet each other?
Yeah, well, I mean, Bree's Australian, so of course we all just try our stock standard shocking Australian accent, which probably sounds to you the same as a New Zealand accent. To us, very, very different. Like like this kind of mockable kind of accent. It's like nothing like ours. So yeah, I think given that we all know each other, or at least who each other is, we've seen each other on shows, yeah, made it a lot easier. Yeah.
The outcome was so horrifically wrong. It just made it more fun because you can sort of just want those greetings, and it is one of those things where when you greet someone, you're not thinking that might be needed later. I might need to do this really well. Do you think that that's what made that task harder because you went, oh, I should have done this, I should have done that.
Well, I mean, I think from memory, the task was kind of because we were never witness to their greeting,
Yeah.
but we just had to kind of imagine how they would have maybe greeted each other, right? So basically, it's just kind of, like I said, putting on a shocking accent and then kind of mocking, kind of doing some awful kind of characterization. I was actually quite delighted by how Brie portrayed myself. I thought quite kind of sexy. I was like, oh, well, but when she said, "Oh, Jackie, okay, maybe Cruella de Vil," like when I saw that, I was like, "What the heck?" I mean, look at me. Do I look like Cruella? Do I have a Cruella de Vil? I don't know. I that sent me into a spin, but
And I think that it would have been more funnier if your costume for the series was the Quell Deville coat, because then that would have
yeah,
been a perfect thing. But I think it shows that I think because it's only episode 2, I think it just
yeah,
demonstrates to the audience what level the creativity is for not just you individually, but as a team. You can sort of just go a leveler of this is how it's going to be. You can not like if you watch the UK version, Mike Wozniak, who is this odd, he's all
yeah.
persona. He's like Sam Campbell, but Mike Wozniak's got a mustache to play with, so he's got this odd persona to him. But when he's in a team, you can sort of tell that the oddness was going to form, and you weren't going to expect him to shave his head to give himself a mohawk. But you can sort of just tell what's going to happen. Do you think that it? Do you think that having that as a first task as a team, do you think that helped to demonstrate not just to yourself but to the audience how you're going to react further on?
I don't think so. I don't know, Tom. I mean, it's a good question, isn't it? I don't know. I mean, maybe. I
Yeah,
can't answer that one. Can I pass? Can I pass on some questions? I'm going to pass on that.
yeah. And
Um,
yeah. And I think if we talk about just briefly shaving heads, I do want to appreciate Sam Smith shaving his head into a monk's bald hat on the New Zealand version of The Traitors. I do want to appreciate that that's one of the greatest
he's funny.
moments. It's like, am I going to do it? Oh, and because he probably felt ashamed afterwards to walk around with a hat on for the next few months. But I do think that's the bravest thing I've ever seen on a reality program where he is best, where he is like out of the three, he was the one that didn't deserve a bald spot on his head, but he did it quite well.
He's
And,
great. He's great.
then we have the live task, and I think the live task, from the episodes I've seen so far, they're very long-winded, and the reactions once it's been read out and going, what? Are perfect because you know you're under time constraint and you know that you need to understand what's going on and it's brilliant. So the live task was display as many emotions as you can in 4 seconds. Most correct emotions guessed by the Taskmaster wins. You'll be given 16 seconds to arrange your emotions on the rack in front of you. You must then perform your emotions in that order. The Taskmaster will review the footage in slow motion. So you all did it at the same time. Do you think that it was easy to do because you've got that skill as an actor? Do you think that you sort of could work out the best way of doing it to get the best advantage?
Ah, I would have liked to have said yes to that, but when I rewatched the studio, I think we were all doing pantomime acting anyway, which I think even a child can do. So no, I don't think me using my nuance as an actor shone through. But I will say that I think the most challenging thing about that task was bloody Jeremy not really recognizing emotions or facial features. And he just like, I think he was just throwing in words that weren't even one of the ones that he was meant to be choosing from. And so, I did feel like some people were hard done by on that scoring, like Alice, like clearly it's happiness. Jeremy,
Yeah.
we can all tell, and he's just throwing kind of like, just random kind of joy or something that's not even on the list. So, but I did appreciate that our beloved Taskmaster did admit that he was a bit at that game.
Yeah. And
Um,
so the point system in terms of how many got correct. So Alice sadly got 2 correct. Bree got 3, Jack got 2, and yourself got 3. Now when I say you got 3 correct, it's mainly because, as we've said, Jeremy Wells didn't do a great job at guessing. But I would say if an audience was if there was a sister series called Taskmaster the Rear Judgment, where the audience then
I
judged
love that.
the task which someone should create, then the scores would probably a lot higher because a lot of people would disagree. And unlike Greg Davis, where people are slightly scared of Greg Davis, they're definitely not scared of Jeremy Wells, even though Greg Davis did make it very clear when he appeared in a cameo that Jeremy Wells needs to be a lot more sterner than he was being, even though Greg's probably never seen a single episode because they were still filming it. And so, I mean,
Greg Davis is so great. Greg Davis is so, I mean, I universally loved, but I love how stern he is, but also he's so energetic.
yeah,
There's so much energy. He's just like this ball of, yeah. Um, but I'm interested in the sister series. Maybe you could host that. I don't know. But I feel like I would potentially lose quite a lot of points in that series. I mean, I would actually like sitting out if I was one of the judges on the sister series. I think for me, I'd be like, she didn't deserve that. She didn't go, especially for some of those home tasks, the things that you bring in at the beginning. I'm like, that was terrible. That was a lazy, shocking kind of attempt at like um yeah, on the first studio, episode that we filmed, I even had no idea that they were going to be photographs that came up. I was like, what's happening? And the others were like, oh my God, have you not watched the show? I was like, I've watched bits of it. So I didn't know that we could make videos or do photo. I didn't understand any of that. So I was like, I mean, I'd stand to lose a lot of points, I think. So maybe I don't want that sister series to happen.
well, in the I think it's the first series of the Norwegian version, they've got their prizes under their chair. They like get a it's like a clock.
Yeah,
They
I
bring it
like
out
that.
and go, that's a thing. And if you some of the British versions, sometimes they do it if it requires the taskmaster to look at it closer up. Sometimes they do it, and obviously Pakistani also got 3 correct. Now, overall, as we evaluate the episode, I think that the winner of this episode was well deserved. Not to toot any horns, but the winner, as we probably guessed by now, was you. You were the winner of the episode. Now, the common question that a lot of the people get asked, and sometimes, so if you think Romish Ranganathan in the first series and can't remember his name in the first series, the Danish version, point up the wedding rings, obviously the person that wins will give it back. Did you keep all the items, or were you one of those contestants that just leave it there and walk away?
I was the latter. I've got so much. I've got 3 kids. One of my kids doesn't live with us anymore. She's at university. That there's so much clutter. Like we're in a world where we're trying to declutter, Tom. So I don't need like the goon stuff. I don't need all that shit hanging around my house. I think I just walked away. I just left them on the table.
And I think that that's the only TV program where you're allowed to just walk away and leave. So there's a program that's called Richard Osman House of Games, but in Australia it's called Claire Hooper's House of Games, which Hooper in an Australian accent is brilliant. It's like the best name to have in an Australian accent. But they have like daily prizes at the end of it, and you forced to take them home. It's like a suitcase with Richard Osman's face on it. I'm assuming it's a suitcase with Claire Hooper's face on it. but they get forced to take them home, and I think that's the good thing about Taskmaster. You've got the opportunity to not have to take them home because some of them are a little bit disgusting, and you don't really want them in your house.
Clutter, you know.
Yeah. And so, as we come towards the end of this interview, this is
Oh,
your
yeah.
opportunity to tell people where can they track you down online.
Oh God, oh no, oh, I'm not online. Tom, this is the only thing that will ever be online about me. This is it. This is it. I'm not doing this for self-promotion. I'm doing this because I looked at your face on the internet and I thought, what a smart looking, witty chap. And then I saw Paul Williams had done an interview with you, so I was like, oh, all right. No, I mean, I have an Instagram account. I believe it's probably called something like Jackie Van Beek would be my best guess.
Yeah.
I do go on it occasionally, but very rarely. No, but Tom, I was just delighted to be able to chat with you. Oh, here's one thing. Oh, if I spin that, now there's a great film you don't want to miss.
Wow.
That is a great film called Nude Tuesday. You will be able to find it online. It's a film that I wrote, which is performed entirely in gibberish. And the nudity is only on the Tuesday, folks. It's only for 12 minutes at the end. So if you're afraid of full frontal nudity, if you find that too challenging, just watch the movie up until the last 12 minutes. So there's my promotion.
It's like Taco Tuesday from the Lego movie. Only happens on a Tuesday. And that would taste horrible. Lego tacos. And they're not as nice as it seems. So, there we have it. Well done for winning episode 2 of series 6. And thank you guys for watching. And
Yes.
now there'll be more interviews from me. Thank you for letting me interview you.
An absolute pleasure, Tom. An absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Taskmaster World will return in full flow. Yes, I've still got to talk about more versions like Taskmaster Junior Finland and more of the other versions and talk about the reasons why they're all successful in their own right. And my quest to interview a very niche reference due to the fact that I'm annoyed I can't remember his name, but the Quebecian version of Mike Wozniak. We wanted to try and interview him. If you know that reference, well done, because I've forgotten his name, and all I remember is it looked like Mike Wozniak, but just French Canadian, which is where Quebec is. And so, thank you guys for watching, and remember, it's not a world, it's Taskmaster World. Bye bye.
Hello everyone, please subscribe to Taskmaster World.